This is Things Police See, First-Hand Accounts, with your host, Steve Gould.
Hey guys, welcome to the podcast that interviews active and retired police officers about their most intense, bizarre, and sometimes humorous moments on the job. I'm your host, Steve Gould. Thank you for joining us, everybody. This is episode number 84, if you can believe it. The big 84. Thank you to everybody who is a monthly subscriber on the show. I want to call roll call right off the top. I want to thank Tony Fahey, Corey Payne, Jacob Ruth, Carmen East, Rich Emery, William James Long of William James Long Investigations, Samantha Harper, Gary Steiner, the great Gary Steiner, Richard Wilson, Scott O'Donnell, David Diaz, Timothy Wright. Thank you all for your continued support. Thank you so much. You guys get the bills paid, you keep the lights on over here, and you kind of take some of that stress and some of those bills off my shoulders, which I really, really appreciate. If you want to become a monthly supporter, any amount is appreciated. You go to thingspolicec.com and you can scroll down and you can click the links and stuff. You'll see it. It's not too hard to do. So thank you to all you fine people out there. And also, we have a sponsor now on the show. We have LifeSpotApp.com. LifeSpot was created from real life critical incident experience. It is an inexpensive, simple to use smartphone app that will undoubtedly save the lives of many. LifeSpot solves 5 major challenges of an active shooter/active threat event. Response time is cut by several minutes. The app notifies all staff members, law enforcement, EMS 911, and command staff that there is a threat at a school, church, or business in less than 8 seconds, which is amazing because 911 can get tied up. 911, believe it or not, does get busy and you're unable to get through. LifeSpot is donated to all law enforcement emergency responders, and you can get a demo by requesting it at lifespotapp.com, or you can reach the founder and owner directly, Brett Titus, at brett@lifespotapp.com. That's brett@lifespotapp.com. Brett is a fantastic guy. This is a case of a company that was started, designed, and functions by the right person, by the person made for the job. 20 plus years, full-time SWAT officer. He is episode, I believe, number 81 or 82. So if you want to see if this guy's a real deal, go check out the episode with Brett Titus, because that's the founder of this company. And the guy knows, he's been to a couple critical instances. He knows what to do, and his company is fantastic. It's growing leaps and bounds. It's going to be huge, and I'm very proud to have it here as a sponsor. So go check him out. So, folks, without further ado, today's guest is a Michigan officer from Southfield Police Department, 20 plus years on the job, worked patrol, detective, FTO, and at one point was a hostage negotiator, and also is the host of the Off Duty podcast, available everywhere you get your podcasts. It's Mr. Anthony McNeil. Let me get Anthony on. Anthony, welcome to the show, brother.
Thank you, Steve. How you doing?
I'm doing great. How are things are you in Michigan still?
Yes, sir. Still here.
Excellent.
Here.
How's the weather?
I saw a funny meme that accurately describes Michigan weather right now. It went from 90 to 55 like it saw a state trooper on the highway.
That's a good analogy for this show. So I have a friend who lives in Michigan, and I have to say, the part of Michigan she lives in looks straight up magical to me. Okay. I hope it's Michigan. I think it's Michigan. Mackinac County?
Mackinac, yeah. She's way up here.
Way up there. Yeah. And it's like this picturesque little village, and there's a bridge that's like miles long. Does the bridge go to Canada, or does that go to an island or something?
No, Mackinac is actually what we call the UP, the Upper Peninsula. Okay. So that's the Mackinac Bridge, and that goes over into the UP. It connects the lower half of Michigan up to the Upper Peninsula there.
Man, it looks awesome. Is that where are you from that area?
No, I'm all the way down. I'm just outside of Detroit.
Oh, damn. That's right. You know what? I looked up Southfield on the map, and I said, yeah, this guy's a little too close to Detroit for my liking.
Yeah, Have you watched the movie 8 Mile with Eminem?
Years
8 Mile is our border. Yeah, that's our borders with Detroit.
Man, can I ask you a question with because I see on when you watch like Discovery Channel, once in a while they'll do a special on Michigan, and they always interview there'll always be a cop or a firefighter on that lives there, and they'll go like, yeah, I bought my neighbor's house for 20 grand. It's like the whole, is there in fact whole neighborhoods that are just like one or two people live in now? Is that what's happening?
Yeah, you go to certain parts of Detroit and you will see that. But I have to say that there's a huge resurgence of the city that has taken place.
Oh, that's great.
Downtown Detroit now compared to 6 years ago, it's not even the same city. 6 years ago, it looked like the pits.
Yeah.
Now it looks like downtown Toronto or someplace. The neighborhoods are all there's an old neighborhood that has these huge houses, like 4,000 square feet, that were built like back in the early 1900s.
Oh, beautiful.
A lot of them are run down and just not taken care of. They were vacant. Now, someone has decided to go through there and they're renovating all these homes and they're just revitalizing the whole neighborhood. And it's actually bringing that whole area about. This area is where all of the Motown people grew up living and everything. The Berry Gordy's and all the big wigs. Yeah. So it's a lot of big mansions there that were just broken down, and now they're all starting to be renovated and it's starting to look nice. The city has really turned around.
Oh, I'm really happy to hear that. I mean, I'm from Massachusetts, born and raised, and I don't know much about Detroit at all, but I did, out of curiosity years back when I heard how bad it was there, I was kind of wondering how big a city Detroit was. Like, what did it, I compared everything to Boston because that's what we have. And Detroit is a big ass city. Like if you go to Street View and Google, that is a huge
It's a massive city.
I mean, it's like America's dirty little secret. No one talks about this major metropolitan area that just collapsed. It's like some of the videos from 10 years ago it looks like a third world country. It's insane.
Yeah. It's funny because, like I say, man, in just a short time, I think a lot of it had to do with the political leaders that were in place. And once they got a mayor in there that gave a damn about the people in the city, things started to turn around. I mean, for years we had Coleman Young, who he helped the people, but he was more into helping himself.
Oh.
And everybody knows Kwame Kilpatrick's story,
Typical.
So yeah. So now they have a mayor that's actually doing things and bringing in tax revenue, and the tax base is growing, and the city is definitely making a turnaround.
Thank goodness, man. That's great to hear. So you were working at a not far from Detroit. So Southfield Police Department, I'm guessing was pretty busy.
Yeah, man, it's crazy. When I started in '92, we were averaging about 50,000 runs a year. And at the time, we had 160 people on the department. When I left in 2013, we were down to 120 people, and we were averaging about 120,000 runs a year.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah.
So you guys were experiencing the police deflation long before now. I mean, because
well, what happened with our department in the '60s? They had a big hiring influx. So our department has been hiring in these big waves. So every 20, 25 years, you start having guys leaving. And like now, when I left in 2013, since I've gone, the department has turned over damn near 80%. I don't even know half the people in there now. That's how much it's turned over. So yeah, and you couple that with the fact that nobody wants to be the police anymore, and the numbers are down.
Yeah, that's for sure. So Anthony, can you take us way back, the early 90s, to your first hot call, the first call that got your blood pumping?
Oh man, this was actually a funny run. It was an armed robbery. I was working midnights. I think it was my second month in the FTO program. And we get a call it was a big boy restaurant, a fast food restaurant. We get a call that there's an armed robbery in progress. And the same two guys that robbed it that night had just robbed it the week before. So as soon as they walked in, the manager recognized them and hit the silent alarm. So we get there, we set up a perimeter outside, and yeah, it's going down. There, you can see them. They got the guns pointed at the employees and everything. And our sergeant comes on the radio and he says, "Everyone hold your position." Well, at the time, like I said, I worked midnight. We were all young guys. It was time to go. No sooner than the sergeant let go of the key on the microphone, on the mic, we were all going through the door. Two guys dived over the counter, tackled the suspects, and took them into custody.
Wow.
We all got chewed out, but but I remember standing outside watching this all go down inside, and I'm like, what the hell did I get myself into?
I bet. So you're watching your field training still, and you're watching these patrolmen just ignore the sergeant and going, yeah, that's a nice suggestion, and we're going to get the guy.
Yeah, exactly. You know, they were all, those guys, they were a hell of a crew. They were all hell of a cops. Don't get me wrong. They knew their stuff, and they were a very active group of young officers, and to stand around and wait wasn't their MO. You know, they wanted to go in and take care of business, and that's what they did.
Yeah. Hey, I know. I mean, even today's standards, I know I have a friend that works for a big city, and he just recently disobeyed a sergeant because they're, you know, if you're not there and you're giving orders, you know, to stand down, and he was there and there was shouting of someone needed help inside because people were being brutalized. Him and his partner said, "We got to disobey the sergeant on this one." And they went in. They were able to explain it later, but I'm sure those guys were out there and they saw something and said, "You know what? We don't have time to set up. We're going to have to go in."
Yeah, like I said, I was literally in step 2 of the FTO program, so it was just follow whatever they do.
Did this give you? Did it give you any pause in your police career? Did it make you go, "Oh man, I don't know, I'm not sure"?
Not really. No, it was. I mean, you know, I was 27 at the time, so it was pretty exciting for me. I enjoyed it tremendously.
Yeah,
you know, that pretty much describes my whole career was like that. You know, and I didn't have any pause whatsoever. You know, once I got into the profession, I immediately fell in love with it.
That's great. So you liked the rush, the adrenaline. You saw that this was cool, getting the bad guy.
Yeah, I went in those stages like most officers. Those first 5 years, you know, you're gun ho. Everybody's going to jail. I'm the police, do what I say type thing. You know, by year 10, you start to slow down a little bit, and year 15, you know, you're guarding the station. You know, so. Yes.
Yeah, I had my car got stolen in LA when we were living there, and I went into the precinct. I know they don't call them precincts there, but the station closest to northwest or northeast, and that's the guy on. It was 6 a.m. The desk officer was you know, a 30-year patrolman, and he just was like, could care less about my car, could care less that I worked for backgrounds. He just was like, you know, it was like looking. He just had that stare, you know, just like he was ready to go.
Yeah, man, been there, done that. I had to spend my last 5 years working the front desk, and I absolutely hated it. It totally changed me as a person. You know, I started hating people, and I'll never forget. I went in one day and I said, okay, today I'm turning over a new leaf. Nothing's going to upset me.
I'm going to be positive.
Yeah. That lasted all of about 15 minutes. This guy comes in and he's just being a total jerk. He and I get into it and we're going back and forth. And he goes about his way. And I'm sitting there, I'm just fuming. I'm boiling. And this lady comes in to make an accident report. And I look at her and I say, "Can I help you?" And she looks at me and she says, well, I was coming to make an accident report, but you just looked at me like, what the F do you want?
Oh, no.
And that was probably the expression on my face.
Yeah. Yeah. Believe me, when I was in LA towards the end, I worked, actually had a great job. I was investigating fraud for an insurance company. I had to get a lot of police reports as part of the job. You just go get the police report for arsons and all that. I sat in a lot of lobbies and a lot of SoCal police departments from Fresno to the Mexican border. And the desk officers just deal with just stupidity, just constant stupidity. Yeah. And you could tell they're just like so done. And, you know, like a lot of times they're on light duty. They've been injured. Something's happened and they're just kind of, you know, you got to keep working. You needed the benefits. You got a family. Okay, this is my job now. I basically assist the records clerk is my job, but I have a gun and a badge. And it's just, it's not what you signed up for. And it's not every officer's strong point. I mean, I have friends that are in sales and they can deal with relentless stupidity and they can deal with just idiots. It rolls off them. They have that personality where they're just okay with it. But most cops aren't like that. Like most cops are like, you know, they're not designed like that, and nor should they be. They just can't stomach it.
Well, I'll tell you, that was my situation. You know, I had some health issues and I was forced to go inside my last 5 years. And like I say, I absolutely hated everything you just described about the desk officer. That was me. That was totally me.
Yeah, it's too bad too, and people don't care about the backstory or why that guy's there or why he might be grumpy. You know, they think it should be a young, sprightly person when they go in that just wants to help you. And, you know,
I'll tell you a funny story real quick about the front desk. When I was getting ready to retire, I think I had about a month or so to go, and I was training a younger officer that was going to be taking my spot up there. And this gentleman comes in to get a ticket signed off for defective equipment. He didn't have a bumper on his car, and the state police wrote him a ticket. So he comes in, and where he parks, we can see the vehicle on the camera clearly. There's no bumper on the car still. So he walks up to the window where the young officer is at, and the officer is telling him, hey, I can't sign off on the ticket, sir. The repairs haven't been made, blah, blah, blah. This goes on for about 15 minutes. I'm sitting there just biting my lip. Finally, I couldn't take it anymore. And I jump up and I go, can I swear on here?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. I jump up and I say, sir, take that fucking ticket and get the fuck out the station. This officer has been more than polite to you, trying to explain it to you in a way that you will understand, but obviously it's not working. So now I will. Get the hell out.
That's good. You're showing the new guy where the line is.
Well, it was funny because afterwards he goes to him. He goes, was I being too nice? I said, no, you did exactly what you were supposed to do. Unfortunately, you will learn that there are certain people that you will deal with. They only understand one tone. And this gentleman was one of those people. You saw the minute I spoke to him, he didn't say a word. He grabbed his ticket and left. Yeah. You know, so.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh man, that's funny. Anthony, can you describe to us the strangest or most bizarre thing you dealt with?
Oh man, I actually have two stories. They're both short.
Yeah, let it rip.
The first story was we had a shooting that took place at a hotel, and I'm the first officer there. And the victim is laying on the floor in the hallway. And I'm talking to him, trying to find out, you know, if he could give me a description of the person that shot him. And while I'm talking to him, all of a sudden he goes, yes, mom. And I'm looking at him like, what? And he says, yes, mom, I can see you. I'm like, what is he talking about? And all of a sudden he goes, yes, mom, I see you. I'm coming. I'm on the way. And then it hit me what was happening. He was passing away, and apparently he saw his mom, who had passed away previously.
Weird.
Yeah, and he was having this whole conversation with her, and when I realized what was going on, I just respectfully stepped back and let him, transition, because it was obvious to me what was. It took a second, But once it's clicked in, I'm looking at him like, man, did that just happen? You know, but he was clearly, yes, Mom, I see you. Yeah, Mom, I'm coming. I'm on the way. And it was kind of spooky.
Wow. You know? Yeah, that is weird.
Yeah.
Wow.
But, you know, we never did find out who ended up shooting him. It was another family member that shot him. So I don't know if he would have said anything anyway, because no one else did. But
right.
The other situation was a gentleman called 911, and he was wheelchair bound. And when we got there, he had already passed. But what was so unusual about it, there was literally these huge beer mugs, like big 20-ounce beer mugs, about 8 of them, full of blood, all over his apartment.
Ooh.
And yeah, and in the sink, in the kitchen, it was full of blood. And this gentleman was in a wheelchair, and rigor mortis set in really fast because I stepped outside. My sergeant was still inside, and all of a sudden I hear a scream. I hear a thump, then I hear a scream. He fell over out of the wheelchair. My sergeant jumped and screamed. But it was, the whole scenario was just weird because there was these beer mugs full of blood everywhere, all over this guy's apartment. And he died of natural causes. Apparently he was spitting up blood.
Oh.
And he literally filled up these 8 mugs of blood. And
I'm fine. Everything's fine.
Yeah. Yeah. So I don't know what he ended up passing away from, but it was kind of weird. Just to go in, it was like kind of like a scene from a movie, just to see this blood everywhere like that.
Yeah, that's disgusting.
Yeah.
Geez, that reminded me. My dad was a cop for a long time, and he had one where he went because he got scared. You know, like he'd been to so many and then deaths, and he went and you know, there was this guy, and there was he was, you know, in his underpants, and it looked like an unattended, and there was crap streaked on the slider where he was like falling down, like he crapped himself and like got his hands in it and probably was like, oh my gosh, you know, he grabbed the curtain that went over the sliding door and it slid in it and he was just lying there with his eyes open. And he just looked ashen. He looked dead. And so my dad's calling it on the radio, and then all of a sudden the guy gasps and tries to sit up, and my dad's just like, ah! Oh my gosh. I said, you know, he's seen so many dead bodies. He said the guy just looked so dead, but it wasn't, you know?
Yeah, oh, man, the stories. If people only knew the things that we go through.
I know. I hated, that was one of my least, the department I work for, the department I'm at now, we used to do a lot of reassurance calls, they call them. So in the morning, we had a large elderly population. They call in every morning to say they're okay, or I'm still alive is what they say, you know. And this is so we don't find a very old unattended body because you know. So there's a little program our department offered, and once in a while, one would get through the cracks, or we'd go, you know, the newspapers would pile up or whatever, and they'd go, oh, you got to go and see. There's a lockbox for it. The FD can open it and searching those houses, you know, and you're just waiting. You go around every corner, the bathroom, the shower curtain, you know, you're looking for this person dead. We had one guy, he died kind of like this guy in the wheelchair, but he died on the toilet, just seated up, unsupported. He's not leaning, holding onto his walker, just dead. Frozen like that. Like rigor was like, had froze him on the toilet like that. And
that's crazy.
It was so weird. I was like, he's not leaning back or anything. He's just sitting there. And his son had come down because he'd got him at night, and he was asleep on the couch next to the bathroom because he could hear his dad like making some noises and thought he might be, you know, getting sick, but he fell asleep on the couch, and the dad had died like that. But like you said, there's so many times you see the human body do these things, and it's just, it's crazy. It's unfortunate that like these things start like the reel starts going through your head and you're like, oh yeah, that was really weird and gross.
Yeah, man. I've seen some crazy stuff over the 20 years, that's for sure.
Yeah, I'm sure. Can you tell us about your most intense or terrifying call?
It's funny. I never really had there was only really one time that I was really afraid in my whole 20 years. But the most intense run I had was I got into a shooting, and it was one night myself and I was talking, we're car to car with another officer, and we're talking, and a sergeant comes on the radio and says he just had a couple pull up next to him that just exited the freeway. Said a guy just shot at him on the freeway. Well, the suspect pulls off the ramp with them, and he's right behind them. And I was maybe a mile and a half away at the time. And by the time I get there, they're conducting, the sergeant and another officer who was closer than I was, they were conducting a felony stop. Well, as I'm approaching, I could see that the guy still had his foot on the brake, and I knew he was going to take off. And sure shit, he takes off, and we end up getting into a pursuit. That was a Sunday morning. It was about 2 o'clock in the morning, 3 o'clock in the morning. There wasn't a lot of traffic. It had just finished raining. So we're going down this 4-lane highway at about 80 miles an hour. And for whatever reason, after about 2 miles into the pursuit, the guy slows down about 40. And when he slows down, I used a pit maneuver and make intentional contact, and his car spins out and it goes up into the median. Well, I was driving one of the smaller Chevy Impalas at the time, and when I made contact, my car veered off and it ended up hitting the curb and it became disabled. But I was directly across from his vehicle, and I could hear his tires spinning and the engine revving up. So I knew he was going to try to ram me. And as I'm coming out of the car, he's coming right for me. So I end up drawing my sidearm, and I end up putting one shot through the windshield. And when the first shot hit the windshield, he turned to go northbound in the southbound lanes of traffic. And I ended up firing 2 more rounds that went through the door, and they both ended up hitting me. Well, the funny thing about it, like I said, it had just finished raining. So during the first part of the pursuit, all the other patrol cars had to fall back because they couldn't see from all of the spray that was being kicked up. And as he's headed back northbound in the southbound lanes, they're all coming southbound, and he sees them, and he turns into a shopping center parking lot. And from there, everybody just played ping pong with him, and they're ramming him and pushing him into light poles and all this stuff. And by the time my car, like I said, it had stalled out, so I had to run down to where they were at. And as I'm running up, I could hear him screaming, "I've been shot, I've been shot." And everybody's like, "Bullshit, nobody shot you." So they're yanking him out the window, and yeah, sure as hell, he had 2 rounds in him, and he ended up going to jail. He was charged with two charges of attempted murder on the 2 victims and a felonious assault on me, and still has both rounds in him. So, and he's still locked up. Hopefully, that was probably the most intense thing that I did. Well, yeah, I would say that probably was the most intense. The other situation I had was we used to have a hotel in the city that every weekend they would host these parties at a bar that was inside of the hotel. And the bar attracted, you know who Snoop Dogg is, right?
Oh, hell yeah.
Okay. Well, there's a guy that used to hang around with Snoop Dogg. He was a pimp from Chicago named Bishop Don Juan. And
that sounds like a pimp, Anthony.
And Bishop Don Juan would host these events called Pimps Up, Hoes Down. And what it was basically the Pimps Convention. All of these pimps from all over the country would come.
Are you kidding me?
I'm dead serious. All of these pimps would come, and they would bring all of their girls that worked for them, and it was a pimp convention. Wow. Well, one night a fight breaks out in there, and there's like maybe 7 officers working, and there's probably 200-300 people at this event. Well, a guy got hit over the head with a cash register, and he's in the middle of all this, and the fire department couldn't come in to render aid. So the 7 of us had to go in. Well, once we got inside, all of a sudden everybody turned on us. And it's 7 of us against everybody. And there was a gentleman that I used to work with named Pete. Pete was 6'6", probably 400 pounds.
Good man, Pete. Good man.
All of a sudden, you just see people just flying because Pete's just grabbing people and just throwing them. And next thing you know, we're surrounded. Our radios weren't working because we were trapped in this little narrow part of the hotel, and our radios wouldn't work, so we couldn't get a signal out. And we're just fighting with people. You know, we still carried batons at the time, so we're the collapsible batons. We have our batons out, and we're just hitting people and just trying to fight our way to get to this guy. And,
Jeez.
you know, yeah, next thing we know, it was all come. I mean, I think every surrounding jurisdiction end up coming. And when you get out in the parking lot, all you see is just literally probably 50, 60 police cars.
Do pimps like, do they only fight by doing backhands? Like, bah, bah. I'm picturing like the guy from I'm Gonna Get You Sucker with like the goldfish in his heels, you know?
Well, I'll tell you the funny thing. Bishop Don Juan drove a Rolls Royce, which was money green and gold inside. The car, it was literally the color of money outside and gold inside.
Damn. And this convention was in your jurisdiction.
Yep.
What a bummer. Yep. You must be like, well, can you do this somewhere else?
Yeah, eventually they end up shutting the hotel down because as over the years, you know, the city started charging them for all of the ruckus that was going on, and it got to the point where they just couldn't afford it anymore, so they eventually shut it down.
Wow. I mean, you'd think that the hotel would make them pay for police details. They probably did, right, eventually?
No, they never did. It was that for about 4 years that went on, and it was just pure craziness every time. And
that would be a vacation day for me. I'd be like, I'm not working tonight.
Well, the unfortunate thing from that, all of these smaller events sprung off. So that was the yearly thing, but practically every weekend, if there was some big rapper or something in town, that hotel was the place to go. And with that rapper came all of his entourage and all the problems. So
right.
You know how that goes.
Yeah, I can remember that. And when I was in police academy, we did I think they teach every recruit about LAPD's problem with corruption, and part of it being with the rappers. You know, with Snoop and all those guys, and the gang officers in LAPD get wrapped up in that lifestyle, working for these guys on the side, doing private security, and that whole world is insane. Like, what are they doing at a pink convention? Like, what is there awards? Like, what are they just like?
I couldn't tell you. I couldn't tell you. I don't know what it was, but it was actually, if you can Google it, it's called Pimps Up, Hoes Down.
Yeah,
you can actually Google it and probably find it on YouTube or something.
Yeah, that's what I mean. I think that. I don't know if Snoop Dogg took it from that event or if they took it from Snoop Dogg, but I've heard Snoop Dogg say that. So
yeah, because Bishop Don Juan, he was in a bunch of these rappers' videos and all this other stuff. He was actually a nice guy. You know, I had talked to him a couple of times. He was actually a nice guy, but you know, that was just his thing. He was a pimp.
Damn. They got to come over to Detroit. They can't stay in Chicago.
Right. Exactly.
What a pain in the ass.
Exactly. It was.
So in your 20 years, what assignment did you like the best? How did you feel about, because we have a lot of newer officers listening. How did you feel about FTO? Because I've only a few times in my life been responsible for like a new guy or gal, and I've never been formally trained as an FTO, but it seems like a lot of pressure, and it seems like It very disruptive to like my little routine as a patrolman. Because you know how it is when you're on patrol, you get your duty bag. This is your office. And nobody's in there screwing with you. You know, you just kind of do your thing. Now, all of a sudden, you got a new person with you, and you got to do the right thing. Like, not that you're not, but you got to do like the exact right thing all the time because you're teaching this new person. I don't know. I mean, I appreciate that position, but it seems like a lot to put on the guy.
I didn't mind it for the most part. You know, as long as I got a heads up, you know, with plenty of warning that I was going to be getting a recruit, it was cool. I actually kind of, you know, I looked at myself. I thought I was a pretty good street cop, and I felt like I had a lot to share. So I didn't mind helping the younger people. And when I got fed up with it was when I recycled a person that should have been recycled, and you know, the people in charge decided, no, he's not going to get recycled.
Yes. My buddies who are FTOs, that's an issue because it comes down to dollar bills. Departments invest a lot of money in somebody. I mean, police academy, gear, training, body armor, like you can put 30, 40 grand into a person, and then they fail FTO. They don't want to hear it. They want them to pass.
Yeah. So, this guy, he shouldn't have made it through. He's still with the department as far as I know. But my first hint that he shouldn't have been the police. One night we get a call of a panhandler in front of a Rite Aid store. And as we pull up, he's driving and the gentleman is sitting on the curb right there in the parking lot. So I go, oh, there he is right there. All of a sudden, the recruit just takes the car and just whips the wheel, and he's driving right at this guy. And the guy's on the curb, and he's trying to shuffle his way back because the push bumpers are like right in his face. I'm like, what the hell are you doing? You know?
Jeez.
Well, that was one incident. I recycled him, you know, down the road. They let him through. Once he gets through, we're at another one of these hotel parties. He pulls up. Another officer had a suspect on the ground. He's driving, doesn't even see the guy laying on the ground. The officer had to pull the guy out of the way.
You got an issue with driving, huh?
Yeah, well, it gets better.
Damn.
It gets better. We get a call of an armed robbery that happened in another jurisdiction. They're in a pursuit. It's coming into our city. This same officer somehow becomes involved, and it turns into a foot pursuit. The suspects end up wrecking their car. It turns into a foot pursuit. Next thing we know, we hear they're calling for a life unit to respond. We didn't know what happened. We get there. Apparently, he ran one of the suspects over and killed him.
What?
Yeah.
You told them about this. You warned them.
Yeah. And the story ends with that guy is now, I want to say he's still at the department. No. You know what? I kid you not. He's not at the department. He is now a chief of another city. I kid you not.
Wow.
He became a chief like a year and a half ago. I kid you not.
Well, it's safer for the community for him not to be behind a desk. That's for sure.
Yeah. But that's when FTO became, that's when I had it after that, But I enjoyed it up to that point.
Man, it is crazy too. It doesn't happen often, and the guys and gals of law enforcement are pretty damn good statistically when you look at it nationally. But I know of a few people that I've watched in their career, and you're like, how is this? How does this happen?
Yeah, I had a saying: you're either made to be the police or you're made to call the police.
Yeah.
So it was as simple as that. You're either made. I mean, because I look back and I'll never forget. We had a guy that he was one of my recruits. This guy started when he was 43, 44. He worked.
Oh wow.
I think he was an engineer at one of the auto companies, and it had always been his dream to become a police officer. Well, he decided to start late. Within a week, I told him, dude, this isn't for you. This job is not made for you. Go back to your desk before you get killed or get somebody else killed.
Wow.
And yeah, it took him a couple of weeks, but he finally realized I was right.
Yeah, it just wasn't, he didn't have it.
No, not at all. Not at all.
Yeah, it's probably a better profession to start younger. Kind of like how, soldiers always look, they get you when you're 18, they put you through training, and we all know when we're 18, we don't really think we're capable of even dying. That's right. The military said before, we don't want a bunch of 30-year-olds. We want 18. Yeah. We want young men who are like full of testosterone and want to kick ass. We don't want a 35-year-old school teacher who thinks, "Geez, this doesn't seem too smart. I could die." They don't want to. They don't want that. You know what I mean? And that's like a gross exaggeration, but you know what I mean. Like when you're a young man, you can kind of, and then if you make it through those, you'll learn and grow and educate yourself and, so on and so forth, but you kind of grow those calluses as you grow as a person. Mm-hmm. If you take a person, I can see in this situation, if you took a person who's 40 or so and sat behind a desk their whole life and you shock their system, it might not work. They might not be able to, like the old dog might not be able to learn those tricks,
Yeah, it's a job not for everyone, that's for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Anthony, can you tell us about a positive situation you've been in? Or one that seemed positive to you, at least.
Well, as I mentioned earlier, I had some health challenges, and I was forced to go inside and work the front desk. And I was there for 5 years. And it got to the point, like I said earlier, I actually started hating people. And a large part of it had to do with the fact that, I was there not by my own choice. I was having some issues with my health, and just a lot of things was going on. So it was just tough to go in and deal with the stupidity every day. And about 9 months before I retired, a lady comes in with her 12-year-old son, and he was a pretty big boy. And she says, "I'm leaving him here. I can't control him. He hits me. He hits my mom. You do whatever you need to do with him." So I was already having another one of my bad days. So
this is what you need.
Yeah. So I get up from the desk. I go around and I go to him. And I say, "Come here." And I take him over to the side and I look at him and I says, "Hit me." And he looks at me and he clenches his fist. And I said, "Go ahead, swing and hit me. I'm going to give you one swing, then I'm going to wear your ass out." And he starts crying.
Oh.
And yeah, he starts crying. I'm like, "What are you crying for? You were a man when you had when you were punching on your mother and your grandmother.
Right.
Now you got a man in your face. You want to sit here and cry." And we talked for about 30 minutes, and it was a typical situation. Unfortunately, there was no real male figure in his life.
Yeah.
Mom was doing the best she could, but he was just at that age where he was just starting to run with the wrong people, wasn't doing good in school. And like I said, we talked for about 30 minutes. And the last thing I said to him was, "Look, I don't know you. You don't know me. But if I get an inkling that you put your hands on another human being, I will personally track you down and beat your ass." That was the last thing I said to him. And the day that I retired, they were having a party for me in the station. And I get called up to the front desk. And as I get up there, it's him and his mother. And his mom gives me a card and she says, "Can I give you a hug?" And she hugs me and says, "I just want to say thank you. Ever since that day you talked to my son, he's doing better in school. He stopped hitting me and my mom. He's doing his work at around the house that I asked him to do." And it was at that moment I realized that everything I had gone through the last 5 years, including almost dying with my health, was for that moment. I was put there for that one young man, and that made those 5 years a whole lot better for me, because I saw that had I not gone through what I've gone through, this young man, who knows where he could have ended up. And I stayed in contact with him for a little while. He ended up getting into college, and he's doing better, and he's doing good.
You're kidding me.
No.
That's great, man. That's beautiful. Jeez.
Yeah. Yeah. And you know what's funny about that? Again, another front desk story. That happened so frequently where parents would bring their kids in. I'm talking about kids as young as 5 years old, and they would say that they can't control them, and you do whatever you need to do. And for that one person to come in, and I saw the difference that conversation made, like I said, everything that I went through for those 5 years was worth it.
Yeah, absolutely. Man, that's crazy. Because you probably think the way we think as cops is like, that ain't gonna make a difference in this kid's life. Like, what's this gonna do?
Yeah, yeah. And his mom told me he had never had anybody talk to him like that before, and it did something inside of him. He wasn't a bad kid. He was at the verge where he could go either way.
Yeah.
And fortunately, it was just the right time when they came into the station, because I had other situations. I'll never forget this one where a lady comes in. She was a hospice nurse, and she was actually working. She was with a patient, and her 16-year-old son had got arrested. Well, the juvenile holding tank was behind the front desk, and I had nothing to do with it. He was arrested with two other buddies for trying to buy some cigarettes at a gas station, and when the attendant went and sell him the cigarettes, they smashed all the windows out of his vehicle.
Oh, nice.
And yeah, so they ended up getting arrested. And again, I didn't have anything to do with it. I'm sitting there watching TV or something when his mom comes in, and she's dealing with the other officers that arrested her son. And they bring him out of the back, and she's talking to her son, she's talking to the officers, and all of a sudden her son goes, "Man, fuck those officers. I ain't got time for this shit. Can we go?" And it was something in my head snapped. I jumped up out of that seat. I ran around that desk. I grabbed that young man. I threw him up against the wall. And I said, "Are you out of your fucking mind? Your mom busting her ass, putting food on the tables, probably paid for everything you got on. She coming to get your sorry ass out of jail, and this is how you disrespect her?" And something, I just snapped.
Yeah.
Because I know had I said something like that, my old man would have beat my ass.
Right.
If I was that disrespectful, and that was the one thing I hated about that desk it was just the things that you saw that you don't necessarily see on the street all the time.
Yeah.
Because especially doing custody exchanges and things like that used to just drive me crazy, But all of that didn't matter on that one day when that young man came in with that card. All of that stuff, it was okay at that point.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. Wow, what a great story. Isn't it true that there really are finding in all these studies that a strong male figure is a big reason why a lot of teens, a lot of young males are failing, why they're getting into so much trouble. They don't have that dad, in the house to just For say, sure. I mean, you had to give them like a super dose. Like, hey, I'm going to beat your ass. You've been missing this for the last 10 years. Let me catch you up. I'm going to kick your ass if I find it. You know what I mean? He needed that little bump. Like, he needed to hear that. And it's, that's just the way it is with a lot of species, like a lot of with humans in general, like the man keeps people in check. That's,
mm-hmm. and I don't know, I've been out of the game now for almost 8 years. I don't think an officer can probably get away doing something like that nowadays.
That's a good point.
Such a different time. Yeah. But at that point in my career, I really didn't. I don't want to say I didn't care, because I did.
You were over it.
Well, it wasn't even that. It was just that my whole career, I was always kind of the renegade, and I never did anything, bad. But I just felt like if something wasn't right, I spoke up about it, and I gave administrations fits.
I bet.
You know, and I never did anything bad or wrong. It's just that when I saw something wrong that needed fixing, I fixed it. You know, my nickname at the time was Sweeper because I was good at sweeping away problems.
That's good. That's a good nickname. You know? So, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny. You like you said, you can't do stuff now like you used to. And you know, my dad came up as a police officer in a different era, and he worked with one cop that underage kids drinking was the thing. You know, and a lot of cops would arrest those kids, or you know, whatever, get them OUIs, tow their cars, whatever. Well, this one cop he worked with he'd pour the beer out, he'd make them do push-ups in it. He'd make them sing stupid songs. He'd make them roll around and get them all dirty. And then he'd bring them to their mom or dad and go, no charges. But hey, I caught the kid. He was a wise ass. He, you know, poured the beer out, did all that. Did it for years. And then, you know, at one point I think it was like the late 90s, if my memory serves me, one mom came into the station, single mom. Local lady came in and said, oh, my son was horribly abused by the police last night. And they go, oh, really? What happened? Well, he was, you know, they poured the beer on the ground. He had to do push-ups in the beer, and he told me all about it, and it was abusive. And she had a meeting with the, you know, with the lieutenant and the chief, and was going to bring a lawsuit. And that was it for this little community. That kind of creative sentencing on the side of the road was over. And the chief was like, arrest him. Just arrest him. Because we can't afford a lawsuit. You know, we can't deal with it like this. So you guys just go by the letter of the law, you know, because and it's only gotten worse. You know, it's gotten, you just need to turn on the TV to see, you know, like cops are basically demons now. You know, it's like, and people are just drinking it down and believing it, you know, without any further thought. So it's kind of a shame, you know?
Yeah, I couldn't do the job nowadays. I'm not built like that. And I understand that times have changed and the profession needs to change with the times. But people have to realize that there is also still a segment of society that are just pieces of shit.
Right.
And unfortunately, we have to deal with them over and over again. And you can't deal with that type of person with a velvet glove.
Right.
You know, and I'm not saying you abuse people or anything like that, but sometimes you have to speak to them in a certain way. They don't just come up and just go along with the program. I've never had anybody like that do that.
Right. Like that guy you had in the station with the young cop you were training. Some of these people will take kindness for weakness. But when you told him, get the F out of here, we're sick of your baloney, he left because he knew it was over. He met, you know, for lack of a better word, an alpha. He said, oh, okay, well, this guy's in charge. I'm going to leave. Like that's how you deal with those people. Otherwise, he would talk smack all day in there, take up your whole day, you know?
Yeah. And I know I may sound like, you know, coming across as an asshole, but I wasn't. I always treated everybody with the utmost respect.
Right.
But if you wanted to take it to the next level, trust me, we can go there. Right. You know, so
that's a big fear of the guys. And when I worked at LAPD background, that's a big fear with the background investigators was like being too overly, getting too many candidates that like couldn't pull that trigger, for lack of a better word. You know, they couldn't draw the line on when to become an authoritarian, when to lay it down. They were get a lot of candidates that had never been physical with anybody, didn't play sports, never been in a fight, live with mom and dad, squeaky clean candidate. But to the background investigator, they're like, not sure. This kid's kind of untested. Like he is, can he do a city like LA could eat this kid up? You know, like you definitely need to be able to like, you know, draw the line and know when to turn it on, you know?
Yeah, for sure. And I don't know, man, it's just a different time. I just couldn't do the job nowadays. You know, you treat everyone with respect. You be kind and courteous to everyone, but just know that 99% of the people out there are good people, just like there are 99% of the cops out there are good cops. But unfortunately, there are those that are assholes, and
sure,
someone has to deal with them.
They need to be dealt with accordingly.
Yeah.
Anthony, last question. And this is a popular one because there's the show has a large following of people who are like in police academy, or they really want to get into police work. So they're kind of searching for police stuff and they're listening. Do you have any advice to future officers or officers that are in training now that you'd like to impart?
Yes, I actually have two pieces of advice. The first is, remember that police work is what you do, it's not who you are. What I mean by that is, don't allow the job to dictate and become your personality. Don't allow it to become your identity. Keep friends, activities, relationships outside of police work.
Great advice.
Because you will need a balance. If police work is all you think about and do and is around, you will start to become a crotchety old man, as my wife calls him. And
yep.
So you need that balance, and it's real easy to become cynical in this profession. It happened to me, and the profession didn't dictate who I was, but that didn't happen to me until my last 5 years, and that was all because of the situation that I was in with the desk. But that would be my first advice. Remember that police work is what you do, it's not who you are. That's the first thing. The second thing is, remember that every interaction that you have leaves an impression, good, bad, or otherwise. So always start out with the best intentions. And if you have to escalate at some point, don't you be the one to unnecessarily escalate things, because you will recognize that trigger when it's time to step it up. So don't be one of those guys that's always pounding on your chest every time you're talking to the 90-year-old woman who just had her cat stolen or something. That's right. Not always, you don't have to be at 100 all the time, because you are dealing with people who are, for the most part, good people. So just remember that every interaction that you have with a citizen leaves an impression, whether good, bad, or otherwise.
That's great advice, Anthony.
Thank you.
One last question. Let's talk about the Off-Duty podcast. What's it all about, brother?
The Off-Duty podcast is a podcast that I started back in February of 2020. And believe it or not, it actually started out, my original plans for this was to be a Facebook watch show, TV show.
Oh, really? Like do it live?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that was the original intent. But it was really hard to get officers to go on camera and talk about their personal lives. So
because they probably want to be able to edit, right? Like down the road, or take stuff out.
Yeah. And it was just really hard to get guys to really open up about their personal lives. So I started thinking, and I think it was, like I said, February of 2020, I started getting into Instagram, and I started noticing all these, quote, Instagram cops. And I realized, man, here's a group of people that's not afraid to put themselves out there.
Yeah.
And I just got introduced to podcasts at that time. So I started looking into it, doing some research, and I wanted to do something different. What makes my podcast different from a lot of the other law enforcement podcasts is more of a lighthearted show, believe it or not. And it's all about the men and women that wear the badge. It's not about departments, politics, policies, or anything like that. Those topics come up from time to time.
Sure.
But it's all about the men and women. And one of the best parts of my show that a lot of people really enjoy is what I call Dig Deeper. And what that is where I get nosy, and I'll dig through my guests' social media, and I'll take certain posts and I'll craft questions around those posts. And
that's great.
I've had people cry as a result of it and everything. So, it's a lighthearted show, and it's meant to allow everyone to get to see the human side of police officers.
Get to know these people.
Yep. Get to know them, because we're human just like everybody else.
I love it, man. I love it. That's great. Where can they can get it? I'm guessing anywhere you get podcasts. Apple, Google.
Yes, we're on every platform. I'm happy to say that the podcast is doing very well now. I just got nominated, believe it or not, for the New Zealand Podcast Awards as the best international podcast.
Hell yeah!
We're number 37 on Apple in New Zealand. We're always in the top 200 here in the U.S. So the podcast is doing very well. We're on episode 57 or 58 or something like that. Still got a long ways to go with it, but it's growing. You can find it on all the platforms, or you can just go to the offdutypodcast.com and check it out. And, I also have my podcast network that I've started where I have 8 or 9 other first responder podcasts that's part of the network, everything from law enforcement to I have a couple of nurses and a couple of firefighter wives that have shows in the network. So my show is also part of that network, the Everyday Heroes Podcast Network.
Oh, man, you're killing it. I'm going to have to get TPS on there.
Yeah, man. Yeah, for sure. I would love to have you. It's we'll talk about it more. But it's the podcast or the network is growing. Actually, I just added another podcast to the network. Now I think we're up to 9 shows in the podcast. And I also just launched my new law enforcement community called the LEO Hub, which is a platform that I've put together strictly for law enforcement and supporters. And the reason why I started it is because I was tired of Facebook and Instagram and Twitter blocking content and taking posts down and all of that stuff. So this is a safe community that we can all come and participate and be ourselves.
That's awesome, man. I love it. That's great. And I will link all of those things in the show notes, and I'll also put it on the website so everybody can know exactly how to get to you. Awesome. Anthony McNeil, thank you so much, sir, for coming on. Fantastic time.
Yeah, man. Thank you. I appreciate you allowing me to come on your platform. I listen to the show all the time. It's a great podcast you have, and I appreciate you allowing me to come on and be part.
Oh, thank you, sir. I appreciate that. Anthony, I'm going to close out the show. You hold on the line when I do the outro.
Okay.
Awesome. Guys, that was episode number 84. Anthony McNeil. Awesome stories. What a good time. Go check out his podcast, the Off Duty Podcast, available everywhere you get podcasts. Thank you for all the rating and reviewing. I appreciate it. We're up to over 500 now. I know I harp on it a lot, but it does help. It does help to get eyes on the podcast, and it helps to get the guests keep rolling in. When people search for a police podcast, we're popping up at the top because of the downloads and because of the all the reviews we get. So I really appreciate that. It's really awesome. Yeah, we'll be back at you 2 weeks from now with another podcast, another interview. If you want to be a guest, please go to thingspolicec.com, scroll down, click be a guest. Just give me a quick synopsis of who you are, who you work for. A couple story ideas. You don't have to type out the story. We just crazy car crash, domestic, FTO story, whatever you got. Just quick notes so I kind of have an idea, and we'll schedule you to come on the show. I'd love to have from city cops to country cops to everywhere in between. We've had. I'm working on getting. I'm in the talks with an Irish Garda and with an Australian. They're a little bit hesitant, but I think I'm going to sweet talk them. I think they're going to come on. It's going to be a good episode. So guys, go to thingspolicec.com. If you love the podcast, you love the content, you listen to all the backlog, it's great to donate. I always appreciate it, or become a monthly subscriber. And don't forget to check out our sponsor, lifespot.app.com. Go check that out. Incredible company doing amazing things. So guys, that is the episode for this week. And thank you for joining us. I will catch you next time.